They say you can't hear your own screams when you're drowning. But I heard mine. Every single one of them echoing off the marble walls of my palace bedroom as my father stood in the doorway, holding my Bible in one hand and a lighter in the other. "Burn it," he said. His voice was flat. Dead. Like he was asking me to pass the salt at dinner. "Burn it, or I will burn you instead." I need you to understand something right now. Before we go any further, I was a Saudi princess. Literal royalty. My closets were full of designer abayas worth more than most people's houses. I had drivers, maids, tutors who flew in from Europe. I'd never washed a dish. Never made my own bed. Never walked through a door I had to open myself. But in that moment, staring at my father's cold, black eyes that looked like abandoned wells with no bottom, I understood a truth that shattered me. All the gold in the world can't buy you one breath of freedom. Let me take you back. Back to where this nightmare began. Back to when I still believed the lies. My name, well, I can't tell you my real name. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because there are men, powerful men, who would pay millions to silence me. To drag me back to Riyadh. To make an example of me in front of everyone who ever dared to dream of escape. But you can call me Amira. It means princess in Arabic. How fitting. How tragically, brutally fitting. I was 17 when my childhood ended. Not slowly, like it does for most people. Not gradually, with first heartbreaks and college applications. No, my childhood was executed. Publicly. Deliberately. And I was forced to watch. I remember the afternoon everything changed. The light in Riyadh has a specific quality, harsh, white, merciless. It poured through the mashrabiyah screens in our family majlis, creating patterns on the Persian rugs that looked like prison bars. I should have known. Even the sunlight was trying to warn me. I was wearing a cream-colored abaya, French silk, hand-embroidered with seed pearls along the cuffs. The fabric whispered when I walked. Everything in my world whispered. My mother's prayers. The servants' gossip. The secrets buried in every corner of our compound. The smell of cardamom coffee filled the air, mixing with expensive oud perfume and the faint scent of fear I didn't yet recognize. My father had called a family meeting. This was unusual. Baba didn't do family meetings. He issued decrees. He made pronouncements. He ruled. My mother sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap like dead birds. She wouldn't look at me. That should have been my first clue. My mother, Ummi, who had braided my hair every night until I was 12, who snuck me extra sweets during Ramadan, who sang me lullabies in a voice like honey and smoke, she couldn't even meet my eyes. My uncle walked in. My father's younger brother. Khalid. I'd always hated him. Hated the way he looked at me. The way his gaze lingered too long on my face during family gatherings. The way he accidentally brushed against me in hallways. He was 43. Twice divorced. His beard was streaked with gray and his teeth were stained from too much tea and Turkish tobacco. He smiled at me. That smile made my skin crawl, made something in my stomach twist and rot. Amira, my father began, and I heard it immediately, the finality in his tone. The door slamming shut. The key turning in the lock. You are no longer a child. You are a woman now, and it is time for you to fulfill your duty to this family. Duty. That word. That cursed, poisonous word that had controlled every woman in my bloodline for 1,000 years. You will marry your Uncle Khalid. The contracts have been signed. The mahr has been agreed upon. The wedding will take place in 6 weeks. Have you ever felt the floor disappear beneath your feet? Have you ever felt your own heart stop beating, then start again with a rhythm that sounds like no, 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 no? I looked at my mother. She was crying. Silent tears running down her face, cutting through her makeup like acid through silk. But she said nothing. She would never say anything. She had learned long ago that words from a woman's mouth were just noise to be ignored. Baba, please, I started. His hand slammed on the table. The coffee cups rattled. I flinched. There is no discussion. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is Allah's will and my will, and they are the same thing in this house. Khalid was still smiling. That horrible, hungry smile. Don't worry, little Amira, he said, and his voice was like oil, slick and suffocating. I will be gentle with you. At first. I tasted bile. Sharp and bitter at the back of my throat. The room was spinning. The prayer beads on the wall. The calligraphy of Quranic verses in gold frames. The photographs of my father with sheiks and princes and oil ministers. Everything that had once meant safety now felt like weapons pointed at my head. That night, I stood on my bedroom balcony overlooking our compound. Beyond the high walls, Riyadh glittered like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Each light was a life. Each life was a person. And every single one of them was freer than me. I was wearing a golden cage. And I had just realized that all the luxury, all the privilege, all the wealth that I had taken for granted my entire life, it wasn't protection. It was the price of my prison. The call to prayer echoed across the city. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I had prayed 5 times a day since I was 6 years old. I had fasted during Ramadan. I had memorized entire surahs of the Quran. I had covered myself. Lowered my gaze. Submitted. Obeyed. And this was my reward? To be sold to a man who looked at me like I was meat? I pressed my forehead against the wrought iron railing. It was still warm from the day's heat. And I prayed. Not the ritual prayers I had been taught. But a desperate, raw, bleeding prayer from somewhere deep inside me I didn't even know existed. If you're real, I whispered into the darkness, if you're really there, please. Help me. Save me. Show me a way out. Because I would rather die than live like this. I didn't know it then, but that prayer, that broken, hopeless prayer, would be the beginning of everything. The beginning of my destruction. And the beginning of my salvation. I need to tell you about my father. Because if you're going to understand how I ended up with a death sentence hanging over my head, you need to understand the man who signed it. His name was Ahmed al-Rashid. In our world, that name opened doors. It silenced questions. It commanded armies of lawyers, politicians, and religious leaders who would bend reality itself to keep him happy. He wasn't cruel in the way you see in movies, no screaming, no random violence, no dramatic outbursts. That would have been almost easier to understand. No, my father's cruelty was surgical. Precise. Cold as the marble floors in our palace that numbed my feet every morning. He had eyes like obsidian. Black and polished and completely, utterly empty. When he looked at you, you didn't feel seen, you felt assessed. Calculated. Priced. I was his daughter, but I was also his property, his investment, his chess piece to be moved across the board of family politics and business deals. I remember once, when I was 11, I found an injured bird in our garden. A tiny thing with a broken wing. I tried to save it, made a little nest for it in a shoebox, fed it water with an eyedropper. My father found me with it 3 days later. "It's broken," he said simply. "Broken things have no value." He took the box from my hands and walked away. I never saw the bird again. I never asked what he did with it. I already knew. That was 15 years ago. And now I was the bird with the broken wing. The days after the announcement blurred together like watercolors in rain. I stopped eating. The thought of food made me physically sick. My stomach was a knot of barbed wire that tightened every time I remembered. 6 weeks. 6 weeks until I became Khalid's wife. His property. His. I couldn't even think the word without wanting to claw my way out of my own skin. My mother tried to talk to me once. Just once. She came to my room in the middle of the night, her face pale in the moonlight streaming through my window. She sat on the edge of my bed, and for a moment, just one precious moment, I thought she would tell me she had a plan. That we would run. That she would finally choose me over him. "Habibdi," she whispered, stroking my hair like she used to when I was small. "My love. I know this is hard. I know you're scared." Hope fluttered in my chest like that dying bird. But this is our way. This is how it has always been. Your grandmother married her cousin when she was 15. I married your father when I was 16. We survive. We endure. We do our duty. The hope died. I said, and my voice cracked like breaking glass. He's 43. He looks at me like I'm nothing. Like I'm just a thing to be used. She flinched. Actually physically flinched. Because she knew. Of course she knew. Every woman in our family knew exactly what I was walking into. "You will learn to manage him," she said quietly. "You will give him sons. You will run his household. And one day, inshallah, you will have a daughter, and you will teach her to be strong. To survive. That's not living, Ummi. That's just existing." Her hand stopped moving through my hair. When she spoke again, her voice was hard. Resigned. Dead. "Sometimes, my daughter, existing is all we get." She left. And I understood with perfect, terrible clarity, I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. Khalid started visiting our house more frequently. To get to know his bride, he said. Every word out of his mouth made my skin crawl. He would sit in the majlis, drinking tea with my father, discussing business and politics and religion, always religion. How women needed to be controlled. How modern ideas were corrupting the youth. How a firm hand in marriage was blessed by Allah himself. And he would watch me. Always watching. His eyes following me when I brought coffee. When I served dates. When I tried to disappear into the shadows like I was learning to do, trying to become invisible, trying to stop existing before I had to start existing as his. One afternoon, he cornered me in the hallway. My father was in his study. My mother was at a women's gathering. The servants had been dismissed to the kitchen. We were alone. "Amira," he said, stepping close. Too close. I could smell him, tobacco and sweat and something else, something rotten underneath expensive cologne. "You don't have to be afraid of me." I pressed my back against the wall. The plaster was cool through my abaya. I fixed my eyes on the floor, like I'd been taught. But my hands were shaking. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." I raised my eyes. His smile widened. "That's better. You know, you're very beautiful. More beautiful than my first wife. Much more beautiful than my second." He reached out and touched my cheek. His fingers were rough, calloused. I thought I might vomit. "I'm going to enjoy teaching you how to please me." "Please," I whispered. "Please don't." "Don't what?" "Don't touch what belongs to me." "You are mine, little Amira. Your father sold you to me for 3 million rials and a business contract. You've already been bought. We're just waiting for the paperwork to make it official." 3 million rials. That's what I was worth. About $800,000. The same amount my father paid for his new Mercedes last year. Listen to me carefully. In that moment, standing in that hallway with that man's hand on my face, I stopped being afraid of death. Because I realized there are things worse than dying. There are ways of being alive that are actually just slow, agonizing death stretched across decades. If you're watching this and you think forced marriage is some ancient thing that doesn't happen anymore, you're wrong. You're so dangerously, tragically wrong. It's happening right now. Today. In palaces and villages and apartments and houses. Girls are being sold. Women are being traded. And the world just looks away. Khalid left eventually. And I stood in that hallway for 20 minutes, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to do anything except stare at the spot where he had been standing. That night, I did something I had never done before. I prayed to Allah, really prayed, not the ritual prayers. I begged him. I prostrated myself on my prayer rug until my forehead ached. I cried until my tears soaked through the fabric. I recited every verse I knew about mercy, about justice, about Allah hearing the oppressed. "Please," I sobbed. "Please, if you're merciful, if you're just, if you care at all, change my father's heart. Stop this marriage. Save me. I'll do anything. I'll be more obedient. I'll pray more. I'll fast more. Just please, please don't let this happen." The ceiling was silent. The walls were silent. Heaven was silent. I prayed for 3 hours. My knees went numb. My voice went hoarse. My tears dried up and left salt tracks on my face. And I felt nothing. No peace. No presence. No answer. Just emptiness. Have you ever screamed into the void and heard only your own echo? Have you ever reached for God and found nothing but air? I had been taught since birth that Allah was close, that He heard every prayer, that He was nearer than my jugular vein. But in that moment, He felt 1,000,000 miles away. Or worse, He felt like He was right there, watching, and simply didn't care. I pulled off my hijab and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were swollen. My face was blotchy. My hair was a tangled mess. Who am I? I whispered to my reflection. Am I anything besides what they tell me I am? The girl in the mirror didn't answer. 4 weeks left. 4 weeks until the wedding. 4 weeks until I would stop being Amira and become someone else. Something else. A wife. A possession. A body to be used. I thought about the balcony. About the fall. About how easy it would be to just step off. To end it before it began. But something stopped me. Not hope. I had no hope left. Not faith. My faith was crumbling like sand between my fingers. It was anger. Pure, burning, white-hot rage. Rage at my father. At Khalid. At my mother for her cowardice. At Allah for his silence. At every man who had ever decided that women were property. At every religious leader who had ever justified it. At the whole sick, twisted system that had been crushing women for centuries. If I was going to die, I decided, it wouldn't be by my own hand. It would be fighting. The thing about rage is that it burns hot and fast, and then it leaves you with nothing but ash and exhaustion. 3 days after Khalid touched my face in that hallway, the anger died. And what replaced it was so much worse. Despair. Real despair. The kind that settles into your bones like winter cold and convinces you that warmth was just a lie you told yourself. That hope was always an illusion. That this darkness is all there is, all there ever was, all there ever will be. I stopped praying the 5 daily prayers. What was the point? I had screamed myself hoarse begging for help and gotten nothing. Silence. Emptiness. A God who either couldn't hear me or wouldn't listen. But here's the twisted thing, I couldn't stop thinking about Allah. About religion. About everything I'd been taught since birth. It consumed me. Haunted me. Because if Islam was true, then this nightmare was somehow part of a divine plan. This marriage was halal, permitted, blessed even. My father was exercising his God-given authority. Khalid was following the example of the Prophet, who had married much younger women. If Islam was true, then my suffering was righteous. And if my suffering was righteous, then what kind of God demanded righteousness? I started reading the Quran obsessively. Not the way I'd been taught, mindlessly reciting Arabic words I barely understood. No, I read translations. I studied tafsir, the scholarly interpretations. I looked for anything, any verse that would condemn what was happening to me. I found verses about men being allowed up to 4 wives. Verses about wives obeying their husbands. Verses about men having authority over women. Verses that said a woman's testimony was worth half a man's. That her inheritance was half. That her very existence was defined in relation to fathers, brothers, husbands, sons. And I found one verse that made me stop breathing. Surah An-Nisa, verse 34. I can still recite it from memory, even now. It's burned into my brain like a brand. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women, because Allah has given the one more strength than the other, and because they support them from their means. Therefore the righteous women are devoutly obedient. As to those women on whose part you fear disloyalty and ill conduct, admonish them, refuse to share their beds, and beat them. Beat them. I read it again. And again. And again. In Arabic. In English. In different translations. Some said beat them lightly. Some said strike them. Some tried to soften it with footnotes and context and explanations. But the word was there. Clear. Undeniable. And I realized this wasn't just my father's cruelty. This wasn't just cultural tradition. This was divine command. This was the word of Allah, preserved perfectly, unchanging and unchangeable for 1400 years. I was reading in my room, door locked, curtains drawn. The book was in my lap. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it. No, I whispered. No, no, no. Because if this was true, if this was really from God, then there was no escape. Not in this life. Not in the next. I was created to be less than. To be owned. To be controlled. To endure. And if I resisted, if I refused, then I was disobedient, rebellious, deserving of punishment in this world and hellfire in the next. Jannah, paradise, was described as a place where men would have virgin houris, beautiful women created specifically to please them. And what would women get in paradise? To be reunited with their husbands. The same men who owned them on earth would own them for eternity. I slammed the book shut. My heart was racing. Sweat was running down my back despite the air conditioning. This can't be right, I said out loud to my empty room. This can't be right. If God is real, if God is good, this can't be what He wants. But who was I to question? I was just a girl. Uneducated in Islamic law. Unqualified to interpret. Corrupted by Western ideas of independence and equality that were spreading like poison through the Muslim world, or so the imams said. I was the problem. My doubts were the disease. And the cure was submission. I tried talking to my Islamic studies teacher. She was a woman, strict, severe, always dressed in black, her face showing only her eyes behind her niqab. Surely she would understand. Surely she would have answers. Sister Miriam, I said during our weekly lesson, my voice carefully neutral, I have a question about marriage. She looked up from the text we were studying. Yes. If a girl doesn't want to marry someone, but her father insists, what should she do? Her eyes narrowed. A father knows best. He sees what a foolish girl cannot see. He chooses based on deen and character and provision, not on childish emotions. But what if the man is much older? What if the girl feels uncomfortable? Uncomfortable? She said the word like it was absurd. Marriage is not about comfort. It's about duty, about building a Muslim family, about obeying Allah's commands. The Prophet himself, peace be upon him, married Aisha when she was very young. Are you saying you know better than the Prophet? The trap closed around me. I could feel it. No, I just This is exactly the problem with girls today. Too much internet. Too many Western movies. You think marriage should be like a Hollywood romance. But that is Shaitan whispering to you, making you rebellious, making you forget your place. Shaitan. Satan. The devil. That's what my doubts were. That's what my fear was. That's what my desperate desire not to be sold to a man old enough to be my father was. Evil. Do you know what happens to disobedient daughters? Sister Miriam continued, and her voice dropped low, threatening. They bring shame on their families. They destroy their own futures. And when they die in a state of sin. The angels don't even attend their funerals. I left that lesson shaking. Not with fear anymore. With something colder. Something that felt like my soul cracking down the middle. 2 weeks before the wedding, they took me shopping for my bridal clothes. My mother, my aunts, my female cousins, a whole caravan of women descended on the luxury boutiques in Riyadh's exclusive shopping district. They were excited. Laughing. Chattering about fabrics and jewelry and henna designs. I was a ghost moving through the motions. Try this one, my cousin Layla squealed, holding up a wedding dress covered in crystals that caught the light like broken glass. You'll look like a princess. I already was a princess. And I had learned that being a princess just meant you were more valuable property. I tried on the dress. It was heavy. Suffocatingly heavy. The crystal beading weighed on my shoulders like chains. My mother stood behind me, adjusting the veil. In the mirror, I could see both of us, her face carefully neutral, mine completely blank. You look beautiful, Habibdi, she whispered. I look like a sacrifice, I replied. Her hands stopped moving. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Pain. Recognition. Memory. Then it was gone. Every bride feels nervous, she said, her voice bright and artificial. It's natural. But on your wedding night, you'll. Please don't. I couldn't hear it. Couldn't hear her try to make this okay, try to pretend this was normal, try to prepare me for what Khalid was going to do to me. She fell silent. And we stood there, mother and daughter, looking at our reflections. 2 women. 2 prisoners. 2 victims of the same system, except she had given up fighting and I still didn't know if I had any fight left. That night, I performed wudu, the ritual washing before prayer, with water so hot it burned my skin. I wanted to feel something. Anything. I was becoming numb, and numbness felt like dying slowly from the inside out. I spread out my prayer rug. Faced Mecca. And I tried one more time. Allah, I said, and my voice was empty, hollow, echoing in my chest like a drum with no skin. I have prayed to you every day of my life. I have fasted. I have covered myself. I have obeyed. I have submitted. And you have given me nothing. No answer. No help. No mercy. The room was absolutely silent. Even the sounds of the city outside seemed to fade away. They say you are closer than my jugular vein. But I can't feel you. I can't hear you. And I don't even know if you're there anymore. or if you ever were. Saying those words out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. Like committing suicide of the soul. Because if Allah wasn't real, then everything I'd built my life on was a lie. And if He was real but wouldn't help me, that was somehow worse. I didn't prostrate. Didn't recite the ritual words. I just sat there, on my prayer rug, in the darkness of my room, feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my entire life. Have you ever had a crisis of faith so deep it felt like drowning? Have you ever looked at everything you believed and watched it crumble to dust in your hands? Have you ever prayed to a God who felt more absent than the empty air? I did. For weeks. And the silence was so heavy, so complete, so crushing that I started to wonder if death would be quieter. If death would be easier. If death might actually be mercy. 10 days until the wedding. 10 days until my life ended. And God, whoever He was, wherever He was, if He was, remained absolutely, devastatingly, unbearably silent. But something else was stirring. Something I didn't recognize yet. Something that felt like a whisper in a language I had never learned but somehow understood. Something that sounded like hope. No. Not hope. An invitation. It started with a dream. I need you to understand, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Not after everything that happened. But at the time, I thought it was just my brain breaking down, my subconscious trying to process the nightmare my life had become. I dreamed of a man dressed in white. Not the white thobes that men wore in Saudi Arabia, this was different. Pure. Luminous. Like the white contained light itself. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I could see his hands. Scarred. Both of them, right through the palms, like something had been driven through them. He was standing in a desert, and he stretched out those scarred hands toward me. And he said one word, "Come." I woke up gasping, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The call to prayer for far was echoing across the city, 4:30 in the morning. My room was dark except for the faint glow of my phone on the nightstand. The dream clung to me. Those hands. Those scars. That voice, so gentle, but with an authority in it that made my father's commands sound like whispers. I grabbed my phone and did something absolutely haram, forbidden. Something that could get me beaten, imprisoned, or killed if anyone found out. I typed into the search bar, "Man with scars on his hands religion." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I had to keep the brightness down, the volume off. If anyone heard me, if anyone knew I was searching for information about other religions. The results loaded. Jesus Christ. Crucifixion. Christianity. I stared at the screen. My mouth went dry. No. No, this was Shaitan. This was the devil himself, trying to lead me astray. Christians were mushrikeen, polytheists, worshipping 3 gods instead of one. They had corrupted the true message. The Quran said so. The Imams said so. Everyone said so. I should have turned off the phone. Deleted the search history. Performed wudu and prayed for forgiveness. But I didn't. I kept reading. And the more I read, the more something inside me, something I didn't even know existed, woke up. Stretched. Started breathing. Jesus claimed to be God. Jesus said he was the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus said he came to seek and save the lost. The lost. I was so lost. So desperately, hopelessly lost. But this was insane. I was Muslim. I was born Muslim. I would die Muslim. To even consider anything else was apostasy, the unforgivable sin. In Saudi Arabia, apostasy carried the death penalty. Not metaphorically. Literally. They would execute you. I closed the browser. Put the phone face down. Tried to sleep. But I couldn't stop thinking about those scarred hands reaching toward me. The next day, I did something even more dangerous. I had a friend named Noor. She had studied abroad in London for 2 years before her family brought her back and married her off to a cousin. She was one of the few people I trusted, one of the few who seemed to understand that the golden cage was still a cage. We met at a cafe in a luxury mall, one of the few places where women could sit without male guardians hovering. We were surrounded by other women in abayas and hijabs, drinking overpriced coffee and pretending we had freedom. Noor, I said quietly, leaning close so no one could overhear, when you were in London, did you ever meet Christians? She looked at me sharply. Why are you asking? I'm curious. About what they believe. She was silent for a long moment, studying my face. Then she pulled out her phone, typed something, and turned the screen toward me. It was a website. Bible.com. If you really want to know, she whispered, read it yourself. But Amira, be careful. If anyone finds out. I know. No, I don't think you do. They arrested a girl last year for having a Bible on her phone. She's still in prison. Her own father testified against her. Ice water in my veins. But also, something else. Something that felt like fire. How do I access it? Don't they block these sites? She showed me how to use a VPN, a way to hide my internet activity, to access blocked websites. It was illegal. Just having the app on my phone was a crime. I downloaded it in the bathroom of the cafe, my hands shaking so badly I kept dropping the phone. And then I had it. The entire Bible. In Arabic. In English. Right there on my device. The most dangerous book in the world for someone like me. That night, I waited until everyone was asleep. I locked my bedroom door. I turned off the Wi-Fi and used cellular data with the VPN active. I buried myself under my blankets like a child hiding from monsters, the phone's glow creating a small bubble of light in the darkness. And I started reading the Gospel of Matthew. I don't know what I expected. Maybe something boring, outdated, corrupted like I'd always been told. Maybe something that would confirm all my doubts and let me go back to my comfortable despair. But from the very first chapter, something was different. The genealogy listed women. Tamar. Rahab. Ruth. Bathsheba. Mary. Women's names in a religious text, preserved, honored, part of the sacred story. In the Quran, women were barely mentioned by name: Maryam, mother of Jesus, and that was basically it. We were the wife of, the daughter of, the mother of. Never ourselves. Never named. But here were women, named and remembered. I kept reading. And then I got to chapter 5. The Beatitudes. The Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I read it 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Not commanded to fight. Not promised revenge. Not told to submit to suffering as divine will. Promised comfort. Promised the kingdom of heaven. Told that God saw them, knew them, blessed them. Tears were streaming down my face. I didn't even realize I was crying until the screen blurred and I had to wipe my eyes to keep reading. Then I got to chapter 5, verse 48. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Heavenly Father. Not Allah, the exalted, the Most High, the Sovereign Lord. Father. I had never, ever heard God called Father in Islam. Master, yes. Lord, absolutely. King, Judge, all-powerful, always. But never Father. Never a word that implied intimacy, relationship, tenderness, protection. Fathers were supposed to protect their daughters. Fathers were supposed to love their children more than their own lives. My father had sold me for 3 million rials and a business deal. But this Jesus. He called God Father. And he said that anyone who followed him could call God Father too. Could be children. Not slaves. Not servants. Not property. Children. I became addicted. There's no other word for it. Every night, I would lock myself in my room and read the Gospels, the letters of Paul, the Psalms, oh, the Psalms. David crying out to God in anguish, in rage, in desperation, and God listening, God responding, God caring. I read about Jesus healing the sick, feeding the hungry, touching the untouchable, speaking to women, really speaking to them, teaching them, valuing them. There was a woman caught in adultery, dragged before him by religious leaders who wanted to stone her to death. The law said she had to die. The penalty was clear, written in stone, literally. And Jesus said, "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." They dropped their stones. They walked away. And Jesus told the woman, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Do you understand what that meant to me? Do you understand what it was like to read about a God who didn't condemn, didn't punish, didn't demand death for the vulnerable and mercy for the powerful? I had been taught that adulteresses should be flogged or stoned. That the punishment was merciful because it purified them for the afterlife. That public execution was a blessing. But Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." I had to stuff my blanket in my mouth to muffle my sobs. 1 week before the wedding. My wedding dress was hanging in my closet, a white ghost mocking me every time I opened the door. Khalid had sent me gifts, perfume, jewelry, lingerie that made my stomach turn. The house was full of women preparing for the celebration, cooking, decorating, gossiping about what a blessed match this was. And every night, I was reading about a man who said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Easy. Light. Rest. I had never known rest. Only the heavy burden of obedience to a system that crushed me. Only the exhausting performance of submission to men who saw me as less than human. But here was someone who promised rest. Who called himself gentle. Who said his burden was light. I found myself whispering to the darkness, "Jesus, if you're real, if this is true, please. Show me. I need to know. Because I can't do this anymore. I can't marry Khalid. I can't live in this cage. I can't serve a God who is silent and demands my suffering." I fell asleep with my phone under my pillow, the Bible app still open, those words glowing in the darkness, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." And that night, I had the dream again. The man in white. The scarred hands. But this time, I could see his face. I can't describe it. I've tried so many times since then, and words just fail. Beautiful isn't enough. Loving isn't enough. Holy isn't enough. He looked at me, really looked at me, not through me or past me, but into me, seeing everything I was, everything I'd done, every doubt, every sin, every broken piece of my soul. And he didn't flinch. Didn't turn away. Didn't condemn. He smiled. And he said, "I know your name, beloved. And I have heard every prayer you thought I ignored. I am here. I have always been here. And I am going to set you free." I woke up sobbing. Not sad crying, something else. Something I had no name for. It felt like my chest was breaking open. Like light was pouring into places that had been dark my entire life. "Jesus," I whispered into my dark room. "Jesus, are you real? Are you really there?" I felt it then. Not a voice. Not a vision. Just a presence. Warm. Close. Real in a way that nothing had ever been real before. And a thought that wasn't my own, "I am. And I love you." If you've never experienced the presence of God, you'll think I'm crazy. You'll think it was just emotion, just desperation, just my traumatized brain creating comfort where there was none. But I know what I felt. I know who I felt. And everything changed. 5 days until the wedding. 5 days until my execution. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. 3 days before the wedding, I made a decision that should have gotten me killed. I was going to pray to Jesus. Not just read about him. Not just wonder about him. Not just feel his presence in dreams and whispers that might have been my imagination. I was going to actually pray. To him. Directly. Do you understand what that meant? In Islam, this is shirk, the unforgivable sin. Associating partners with Allah. Worshipping anyone besides the one God. It's the only sin the Quran says Allah will never forgive. People who commit shirk are destined for eternal hellfire, no exceptions, no mercy. I had been taught this since I could talk. Shirk was worse than murder. Worse than rape. Worse than anything. It was the ultimate betrayal, the ultimate evil. And I was about to do it anyway. Because I had already prayed to Allah for weeks, years, really, and gotten nothing but silence. And I had whispered Jesus' name a handful of times and felt more response, more presence, more real connection than I had in my entire life of Islamic devotion. So that night, I locked my door. I didn't face Mecca. I didn't perform wudu. I didn't kneel on my prayer rug in the prescribed position. I just sat on my bed, in my pajamas, with my hands folded in my lap like a child, and I spoke. Jesus. I don't know how to do this. I don't know the right words. I don't know if I'm even supposed to be talking to you. Everything I've been taught says this is wrong, says you're not God, says I'm committing the worst sin possible. My voice cracked. Tears were already starting. But I read about you. I read what you said, what you did. And it's so different from everything I've known. You called God Father. You said you came for the sick and the broken and the lost. You said you came to set captives free. I took a shaking breath. I'm captive. I'm so captive. And I'm sick and I'm broken and I'm lost. And if you're real, if you're really who you say you are, I need you. I need you so desperately. Because I can't survive this. I can't marry Khalid. I can't live this life. And I have nowhere else to turn. The room was completely silent. The air conditioning hummed softly. Outside, I could hear the distant sound of traffic, the city that never slept. Please, I whispered. Please, Jesus. If you're real, show me. I'm not asking for proof anymore, I'm begging for it. Because I want to believe. I need to believe. But I'm so scared. Scared of being wrong. Scared of hell. Scared of what will happen to me if I turn my back on Islam. And then I said the most dangerous words I had ever spoken. But I'm more scared of living without you. So here I am. I'm yours. If you want me, take me. Save me. Change me. Whatever it takes. I surrender. Not to Islam's demands. Not to my father's commands. But to you. To you alone. I sat there in the silence, waiting, hoping, terrified I would feel nothing. That it had all been wishful thinking. That I was alone after all. And then. Listen to me. I need you to hear this carefully. What happened next, it wasn't subtle. It wasn't vague. It wasn't something I could explain away or rationalize or dismiss as emotion or psychology. It was real. As real as the phone in your hand right now. As real as the air in your lungs. The temperature in the room changed first. Not cold, warm. Like stepping into sunlight after being in shadow. My skin tingled. The hair on my arms stood up. And then I felt him. I can't explain it any other way. I felt a presence, a person, enter my room. Not physically, but more real than physical. More solid than the walls around me. More present than my own heartbeat. I opened my eyes. And he was there. Not in a body, not exactly. But I could see him. Not with my physical eyes, but with something deeper, something inside me that had been blind my entire life and suddenly could see. He was light. Pure, radiant, overwhelming light. But not harsh, gentle. Warm. The kind of light that doesn't hurt to look at but instead heals everything it touches. And within the light, I could see him. His form. His face. Jesus. I knew it was him. I didn't need anyone to tell me. I didn't need a voice from heaven announcing it. I just knew, the way you know your own name, the way you know when you're awake versus dreaming. His eyes, oh God, his eyes. They were infinite. Ancient and eternal and yet so alive, so present, so focused completely on me. Brown eyes, maybe, or golden, I couldn't tell. They seemed to contain every color, every emotion, everything good that had ever existed. And they were looking at me with a love so intense, so complete, so unconditional that I couldn't breathe. I had never been looked at like that. Not once. Not ever. My father looked at me with calculation. Khalid looked at me with possession. My mother looked at me with pity and resignation. The world looked at me as property, as a problem, as less than. But Jesus looked at me like I was precious. Like I was treasured. Like I was worth dying for. And then he spoke. Not out loud, I didn't hear it with my ears. But I heard it. In my mind, in my heart, in my soul. His voice was everywhere and nowhere, soft as a whisper and powerful as thunder. Amira. He said my name. My name. Not daughter of Ahmed. Not princess. Not woman. Not any of the labels that had defined me. Just Amira. Me. Myself. The person I was underneath everything else. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Tears were pouring down my face, but I wasn't sobbing, I was just overflowing. Like a cup that had been empty for so long it didn't know what to do with fullness. I have heard every prayer, he said. Every tear you cried, I collected. Every night you lay awake in fear, I was beside you. Every time you felt alone, you weren't. I was there. I have always been there. But you didn't answer, I managed to whisper. I prayed and prayed, Anne. I am answering now. His voice was so gentle, but it had an authority that made my father's commands sound like nothing. This was the voice that spoke the universe into existence. The voice that calmed storms and raised the dead and made demons flee in terror. And it was speaking to me. About me. For me. Why? The word ripped out of me. Why me? Why do you care? I'm nobody. I'm just a girl trapped in a palace. I'm just. You are mine. The words hit me like a physical force. I actually gasped. You were mine before the foundation of the world. Before your father chose your name, I knew you. Before Islam came to your land, I loved you. Before you were born, I died for you. I don't understand, I sobbed. I was Muslim. I prayed to Allah. You were searching for me. You just didn't know my name yet. He moved closer, Or maybe I moved closer to him, I couldn't tell. Space and distance didn't seem to work normally in his presence. The God you prayed to could not answer because that God is not real. Not the way you were taught. You were praying to a system, to a religion, to rules and laws and demands. But I am not a system. I am a person. And I am calling you by name. Jesus, I breathed his name like a prayer, like a lifeline, like the only word that mattered. I am the way, the truth, and the life, he said, and I recognized the words from the Gospel of John. No one comes to the Father except through me. And I am bringing you home. But my family, my father, Khalid, the wedding, I can't, there's no way. Do you believe I am who I say I am? The question hung in the air. This was it. The moment of choice. The point of no return. Did I believe? Really believe? Not just intellectually, not just emotionally, but with everything I was? I thought about the verses I'd read. About Jesus walking on water, calming storms, healing the sick, raising the dead. About him being crucified, dying, being buried, and rising again 3 days later. About him ascending to heaven and promising to return. Was it true? Could it be true? I looked at his face. At those eyes that saw everything and loved me anyway. At those scars on his hands that he stretched toward me, scars from nails that had been driven through his flesh because he chose to die in my place. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I believe. I believe you're God. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe. I believe everything. The smile that broke across his face was like the sun rising after the longest night. Then you are saved. You are free. You are my daughter. And no one, not your father, not Khalid, not the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, not all the powers of hell, can snatch you out of my hand. But how? I was crying so hard I could barely get the words out. How am I supposed to escape? They're going to make me marry him. They're going to. Do you trust me? I want to. But I'm so scared. Perfect love casts out fear. His hand, or what appeared to be his hand, reached toward my face. I felt warmth, like sunlight on my skin. I am going to do something in 3 days that will leave no doubt. Everyone will see. Everyone will know. And you will walk out of that palace free. What are you going to do? You'll see. But first, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I'll do anything. Tell them you will not marry Khalid. Tell them you belong to me now. Tell them the truth. My blood turned to ice. They'll kill me. If I tell them I'm Christian, if I refuse the wedding, Jesus, they'll execute me. It's the law. I know. His voice was still gentle, but there was steel underneath it. I'm not asking you to do something I haven't already done. I told the truth, and they killed me for it. But death could not hold me. And it will not hold you either. You're asking me to die? I'm asking you to live. Really live. For the first time in your life. And yes, that might mean facing death. But Amira, he leaned closer, and his presence was so overwhelming, so beautiful, so impossibly good that I thought my heart might explode. I have already conquered death. And whoever believes in me, though they die, yet shall they live. Do you believe this? Did I? Could I? I thought about my life. My gilded cage. The wedding dress hanging in my closet like a funeral shroud. Khaled's hands on my face. My father's empty eyes. The suffocating weight of a religion that promised heaven but delivered hell. And then I thought about this. Jesus. Here. Real. Present. Loving me with a love that made every other love I'd ever known look like hatred in comparison. Yes, I said, and my voice was steady for the first time in weeks. Yes, I believe. And yes, I'll do it. I'll tell them. I'll refuse. Whatever happens. I'm yours. The light around him intensified until I had to close my eyes. But I could still feel him, his joy, his pleasure, his fierce protective love surrounding me like armor. Then watch what I will do, he said. 3 days. At the wedding. I will show them all who I am. And you, my beloved, will be a witness to my power and my glory. The presence began to fade. Not leaving, I could still feel him, just further away. Like he was stepping back but not abandoning me. Wait. I called out. Will I see you again? You will see me every day for the rest of your life. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. And when your time on earth is done, you will see me face to face, and we will never be parted again. This I promise you. And then he was gone. I sat on my bed for I don't know how long. An hour maybe. Maybe more. The room looked exactly the same furniture, same curtains, same air conditioning humming. But I was completely, fundamentally, eternally different. I wasn't Muslim anymore. I was Christian. I wasn't lost anymore. I was found. I wasn't alone anymore. I was loved. And in 3 days, at my wedding to a man I despised, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, was going to do something that would change everything. I didn't know what. I didn't know how. But I knew who. And that was enough. The morning of my wedding day, I woke up and tasted metal in my mouth. Fear. Pure, primal fear that made my hands shake and my stomach twist. Because today was the day I was going to tell them. Jesus had been clear. I had to refuse the marriage. I had to tell the truth. And he had promised, sworn, that he would do something, that everyone would see, that I would walk out free. But sitting there in my bedroom, watching the sun rise over Riyadh through my window, the terror was almost overwhelming. They were going to kill me. That wasn't paranoia or exaggeration. In Saudi Arabia, apostasy, leaving Islam, carried a mandatory death sentence. And refusing to marry the man your father had chosen? That was grounds for honor killing, and the courts would look the other way. I was about to sign my own death warrant. My mother came in without knocking. She never knocked. She had a team of women with her, the hairstylists and makeup artists who would transform me into a beautiful bride. A decorated sacrifice. Habibdi, she said, and her voice was artificially bright, today is your special day. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see my mother. I saw a woman who had been so broken by this system that she was now a willing participant in breaking her own daughter. I said quietly, I need to talk to Baba. Before the ceremony. It's important. Her smile faltered. Amira, there's no time. The guests will start arriving in a few hours. We need to. I need to talk to him. Now. Something in my voice made her stop. Made her actually look at me instead of through me. And I saw it, a flicker of fear in her eyes. Like she knew. Like some part of her had always known that this day would come, that I would break instead of bend. What are you going to do? She whispered. What I should have done weeks ago. She backed toward the door, shaking her head. No. No, Amira, don't. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Just get through today. Just survive. You can learn to live with it. I did, all of us did. I'm not you, Ummi. And I'm not going to spend my life just surviving. She left. Practically ran from the room. And I knew, I had maybe 30 minutes before my father came. 30 minutes before everything exploded. I used that time to pray. Not to Allah. That life was over. That God, if he had ever existed at all, had never heard me, never helped me, never loved me. I prayed to Jesus. The man who had appeared in my room 3 nights ago. The God who had called me by name and promised to set me free. Jesus, I whispered, kneeling by my bed, I'm so scared. I'm about to do what you asked, but I need you. I need your strength. I need your courage. I need you to keep your promise. Please. Please don't let me face this alone. And I felt it, that warmth, that presence, that unshakable certainty that I wasn't alone. That he was with me. Right there. Right then. I am with you. Even to the end of the age. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. The words echoed in my heart. Not audible, but more real than any sound. I stood up. Straightened my shoulders. And I waited. My father entered my room like a storm. His face was dark, his eyes blazing. My mother must have told him I wanted to talk. Must have told him something was wrong. What is this nonsense? He demanded. Your mother says you're being difficult. Today of all days, Amira. Your wedding day. The guests are arriving. Khalid is on his way. What could you possibly need to discuss? I looked at him. This man who had given me life. This man who had fed me, clothed me, housed me in luxury. This man who had never once asked me what I wanted, what I felt, what I dreamed. This man who was about to sell me to his brother like a piece of furniture. I'm not marrying Khalid, I said. The words fell into the room like stones into still water. The silence that followed was deafening. What did you say? His voice was deadly quiet. I'm not marrying him. I won't. You can't make me. He crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed my arm. His grip was iron, bruising. You will do as you're told. The contracts are signed. The mahr is paid. The guests are arriving. You will put on your dress, you will smile, you will marry Khalid, or I will. Or you'll what? Something was rising in me. Not anger, something cleaner. Something that felt like truth burning away lies. Beat me? Lock me up? Kill me? Go ahead, Baba. But I will not marry him. I will not live my life as property. I'm done. His hand rose. For a moment, I thought he was actually going to hit me. And I didn't care. I wasn't afraid anymore. How could I be afraid of a man when I'd stood in the presence of God? You ungrateful, do you know what you're throwing away? Do you know the shame you're bringing on this family? I should have. I'm a Christian. The words exploded out of me. I hadn't meant to say them. Not yet. Not like this. But they came anyway, unstoppable, undeniable. My father froze. His face went white, then red, then purple. What did you say? I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. He's the Son of God. He died for my sins and rose from the dead. And I belong to him now. Not to you. Not to Khalid. Not to Islam. To Jesus. For a moment, just a single moment, I saw something in my father's eyes that might have been grief. Might have been loss. Might have been the recognition that he had pushed too hard and broken the thing he was trying to control. But it vanished. Replaced by cold, murderous rage. You will take that back, he said, his voice shaking. You will renounce this blasphemy. You will beg Allah for forgiveness. And then you will marry Khalid and never speak of this again. No. He released my arm and pulled out his phone. I'm calling the religious police. You know what they do to apostates? You know what the law says? I know. And I don't care. Jesus is worth it. He stared at me like I was a stranger. Like the daughter he knew had died and been replaced by someone unrecognizable. Then you are not my daughter, he said finally. You are already dead to me. He left. And I heard the lock click from the outside. He had locked me in my room. Imprisoned me in my own palace. But I wasn't afraid. Because I wasn't alone. An hour passed. 2 hours. I could hear commotion in the house, raised voices, people running, my mother crying. The wedding was supposed to start in 30 minutes, and the bride was locked in her room, having committed apostasy. I sat on my bed, holding my phone with the Bible app open, reading Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Multiple people. The lock clicked. The door opened. My father. Khalid. 2 of my uncles. And my blood turned cold, a representative from the Committee for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. The religious police. A man in a white thobe with a thick black beard and eyes like chips of ice. This is her? The religious policeman asked. Yes, my father said. My daughter. She has renounced Islam. She claims to be Christian. She refuses to marry. Khalid was staring at me with undisguised fury. After everything? After the contracts, the preparations, the money? You humiliate me like this? I didn't humiliate you, I said, my voice steady. I just chose truth over lies. The religious policeman stepped forward. Do you confirm this? You have left Islam? Yes. And you believe in the Christian religion? In their corrupted scriptures? In their claim that Allah has a son? I believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I believe He died for my sins. I believe He rose from the dead. And I believe He's the only way to salvation. Khalid lunged at me. My uncles had to hold him back. You filthy whore. You bring this shame on our family? I'll kill you myself. Enough, the policeman said. His voice was cold, clinical. The law is clear. She has committed apostasy. She must be given a chance to recant. If she refuses, the penalty is death. Death. There it was. Out loud. Official. My father's face was stone. No emotion. No mercy. Give her the chance. The policeman turned to me. This is your final opportunity. Recant your apostasy. Say the Shahada. Return to Islam. Marry as your father has commanded. Or face the consequences. Every eye in the room was on me. My father. Khalid. My uncles. The religious policeman. And somewhere, everywhere, Jesus. I could feel him. That presence I'd felt 3 nights ago. That warmth. That love. That absolute certainty. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. I am with you. No, I said. I will not recant. Jesus Christ is Lord. And I choose Him. Even if it costs me everything. The room erupted. Khalid was screaming. My father was shouting orders. My uncles were arguing about what to do, how to contain this, how to prevent the scandal from spreading. And the religious policeman pulled out his phone. I'm calling the authorities. She'll be arrested and tried. The sentence will be carried out. Wait. Everyone turned. It was my mother. She had appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears, her hands shaking. Please, she begged. Please, she's my daughter. She's confused, she's been reading forbidden things, but she can change, she can. Stop. I looked at her, this broken woman who had never stood up for herself, never fought back, never questioned. I'm not confused. I'm not brainwashed. I'm finally free. And I'm sorry, I'm so sorry you never got to feel what I feel right now. I'm sorry you spent your whole life in a cage and convinced yourself it was a palace. She collapsed, sobbing. My father's voice was ice. Perform the marriage. Now. By force if necessary. Once she's legally his wife, Khalid can deal with her as he sees fit. No, Khalid said, and there was something terrifying in his voice. I don't want her now. She's contaminated. Corrupted. But before the authorities take her, before she's executed, I want to see her precious Jesus save her. I want to watch her realize she threw her life away for a dead man and a fairy tale. He grabbed my wrist and dragged me out of the room. I stumbled, trying to keep up. My father and the others followed. We went down the stairs, through the hallways, out into the courtyard where the wedding was supposed to take place. The guests were there. Hundreds of them. Family, friends, business associates, all dressed in their finest, waiting for a celebration that had turned into an execution. Khalid threw me to the ground in front of them. I landed hard on the stone pavers, my hands scraping, my knee splitting open. Blood. I tasted it on my lip where I'd bitten through. This woman, Khalid announced, his voice booming across the courtyard, has committed apostasy. She has renounced Islam. She claims to worship the Christian God. And before the authorities take her to her death, I want all of you to witness her shame. Gasps. Horrified whispers. Some of the women were crying. Some of the men were shouting for my death. I pushed myself to my knees. Blood dripped from my split lip onto my white dress. I was still wearing it, the wedding dress, now stained with my own blood. "It's true," I said, and my voice carried across the courtyard. "I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. And He is more real, more loving, more powerful than anything I've ever known in Islam. Then let Him save you." Khalid roared. He grabbed me by the hair and dragged me to my feet. Let Him perform a miracle. Let Him prove He's real. Or admit you're a liar and a fool and beg for mercy. My father stood there, watching. His face was empty. Whatever love he'd ever had for me, if he'd ever had any, was gone. I looked up at the sky. The sun was brutal, blinding. And I prayed, not silently this time, but out loud, in front of everyone. "Jesus," I said, and my voice broke. "Jesus, you promised. You said you would show them. You said you would set me free. I've done what you asked. I've told them the truth. I've chosen you. Please, please don't let me die thinking I was wrong. Please show them who you are. Show them you're real." Silence. The courtyard was absolutely silent. Seconds ticked by. 5. 10. 15. Nothing happened. Khalid laughed. It was a horrible sound. Triumphant. Mocking. "You see? Nothing. Your Jesus is dead. He's a myth. And you threw away your life for." The sky went dark. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing. This is exactly what happened. In the middle of a bright, cloudless day, the sky went dark. Not gradually, instantly. Like someone had flipped a switch. The sun disappeared behind clouds that materialized out of nowhere, thick and black and roiling. People screamed. Started looking around in confusion and terror. And then the wind came. Not a natural wind. This was violent, howling, whipping through the courtyard like a living thing. It tore at clothes, knocked over chairs, sent decorations flying. Thunder. Deafening thunder that made the ground shake. Lightning split the sky, not normal lightning. This was white, pure, impossibly bright. It struck in the center of the courtyard, and everyone fell back, shielding their eyes. And in the light, in the center of the lightning, He appeared. Jesus. Not invisible this time. Not a dream. Not a vision. He was there. Standing in the courtyard. visible to everyone. He was wearing white robes that glowed like they were made of light itself. His hair was like wool, white and radiant. His eyes were like flames of fire. His face was like the sun shining in full strength. And his voice, when he spoke, it wasn't loud, but it filled everything. It resonated in the air, in the ground, in our very bones. Who dares harm my beloved? People were on their faces, prostrating, screaming, praying. Some were trying to run, but their legs wouldn't work. Khalid had released me and fallen backward. His face was gray with terror. My father was on his knees, his mouth open, no sound coming out. The religious policeman was trembling, his phone fallen from his hand, forgotten. Jesus walked toward me. The ground seemed to glow where his feet touched it. Every step was like reality itself was bending, acknowledging its creator. He reached down and took my hands, the same hands that had dragged me, the same hands that were bleeding from my fall. And the moment he touched me, the pain vanished. The cuts healed. The bruises disappeared. He lifted me to my feet. And he looked at me with those eyes, those infinite, loving, all-seeing eyes, and he smiled. Well done, good and faithful servant. You chose truth over comfort. You chose me over safety. And now they will know that I am the Lord. He turned to face the crowd. Hundreds of people, all on their faces, all terrified, all witnesses. I am Jesus Christ, he declared, and his voice was like thunder and like music, like judgment and like mercy. I am the Son of God. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the resurrection and the life. And this woman belongs to me. She is my daughter. And no one will harm her. No one will touch her. Because she is under my protection. And I have defeated death, I have conquered hell, and I will defend what is mine. He looked at my father. And my father, this man who had never bowed to anyone, who commanded respect and fear and obedience, my father was weeping. Actually weeping. You sold your daughter, Jesus said, and the words were like a sword cutting through lies. You chose money and pride and tradition over the child I entrusted to you. And today, you have seen what you rejected. You have seen the truth. And you will remember this day until your last breath. He looked at Khalid. You looked at her with lust and possession. You wanted to own her, to control her, to break her. But she was never yours. She was always mine. And I came to set the captives free. Lightning struck again. The ground trembled. And Jesus turned back to me. Are you ready to leave this place? Yes, I whispered. Yes, Lord. Then come. Follow me. And I will lead you to a life beyond anything you can imagine. A life of freedom. Of purpose. Of joy. Walk with me, and you will never be alone again. He held out his hand. I took it. And we walked together through the courtyard, past the prostrate guests, past my weeping mother, past my broken father, past Khalid cowering on the ground. The gates opened by themselves. We walked through them. And the moment we stepped outside the compound, the darkness lifted. The sun returned. The wind stopped. He turned to me one last time. I am sending people to help you. You will be taken to safety. You will be given a new life. But remember this day, Amira. Remember that I am faithful. Remember that I keep my promises. And tell the world what you have seen. Tell them who I am. I will, I said. I swear I will. He smiled. And then, just like he had appeared, he was gone. But I was standing outside the gates of my palace. Free. Alive. Saved. And behind me, I heard sirens. Chaos. People shouting. The scandal that would shake the kingdom. But I didn't look back. I had been set free by the Son of God himself. And nothing would ever be the same again. I stood outside the gates of my family's compound, wearing a blood-stained wedding dress, with no money, no identification, no phone, and no plan. But I wasn't afraid. I should have been terrified. A woman alone on the streets of Riyadh, especially a woman who had just committed apostasy in front of hundreds of witnesses, was in mortal danger. The religious police would be searching for me. My family would send people to find me. Khalid. I didn't even want to think about what Khalid would do if he got his hands on me. But Jesus had said he was sending help. And after what I had just witnessed, after watching the Son of God appear in physical form and declare me his own, I believed him. I started walking. Away from the compound. Away from the only life I'd ever known. The street was nearly empty, most people were inside, escaping the afternoon heat. My bare feet slapped against the hot pavement. I hadn't even been wearing shoes. The wedding dress dragged behind me, the expensive silk picking up dirt and dust. I must have looked insane. A bride running away, covered in blood and dirt, walking alone through the streets of Riyadh. I had gone maybe 3 blocks when a car pulled up beside me. A small, old sedan. Dented. Rusty. Nothing like the luxury vehicles I was used to. The window rolled down. A woman was driving. She was wearing a black abaya and niqab, only her eyes visible. But those eyes, they were kind. Warm. And there was something else there. Recognition. Amira, she said quietly. I stopped. How do you know my name? Get in the car. Quickly. Before anyone sees you. Every instinct I had been trained to have was screaming at me not to get into a stranger's car. But something deeper, something that had nothing to do with training and everything to do with trust, told me this was the help Jesus had promised. I got in. She drove fast, but not recklessly. Taking side streets. Avoiding main roads. Checking her mirrors constantly. We didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. I just sat there, shaking, my hands clutched in my lap, reality starting to crash down on me. I had done it. I had actually done it. I had refused the marriage. I had declared my faith in Jesus. I had watched him appear in front of hundreds of people. And now I was running for my life. Who are you? I finally asked. She glanced at me, then back at the road. My name is Fatima. Or it used to be. Now I go by Sarah. My heart stopped. You're a convert. Yes. I left Islam 8 years ago. I believed in Jesus Christ. And I've been helping others like us ever since. She looked at me again, and I could see the smile in her eyes even though I couldn't see her mouth. When I woke up this morning, I had the strongest feeling, a voice, almost, telling me to drive to the Al-Rashid compound. Telling me someone would need help. Telling me to wait. I've learned to listen to that voice. It's never been wrong. Tears were streaming down my face. Jesus sent you. Yes. He did. We drove for another 20 minutes, winding through neighborhoods I didn't recognize. Finally, we pulled into an underground parking garage. Sarah parked and turned off the engine. "Where are we?" I asked. "A safe house. One of several across the city. We have a network, ex-Muslims who've converted, along with foreign Christians working here. We help people like you escape. Get you new identities. Get you out of the country." "Out of the country?" She nodded. "Amira, you can't stay in Saudi Arabia. What happened today, it's going to be everywhere. Every news channel, every social media platform. A woman refusing to marry, claiming apostasy, and then," she paused. "What happened in that courtyard? The people I've been in contact with are saying something impossible happened. Something supernatural." "Jesus appeared," I said simply. "He was there. Physically there. Everyone saw him." Sarah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Then you're not just a normal apostate. You're a witness to a miracle. And that makes you the most dangerous woman in Saudi Arabia right now. They'll want to silence you. Permanently." Fear tried to claw its way up my throat. I pushed it down. "Where will I go?" "We have connections. Usually we send people to Lebanon first, then to Europe or America. But we need to move fast. Within hours, maybe minutes, your face will be all over the news. The airports will be watching. The borders will be on alert. We need to get you out tonight. Tonight." Less than 12 hours since I had woken up expecting to be married. Less than 6 hours since Jesus had appeared in my courtyard. And now I was fleeing the country. "I have nothing," I said. "No money, no passport, nothing. We have everything you need. Come on." The safe house was a small apartment, plain, sparse, nothing like the palace I'd grown up in. But it felt safe. Sacred, almost. Inside, there were 3 other people waiting. 2 women and 1 man. All Arabs. All with that same look in their eyes, the look of people who had walked through fire and survived. "This is Amira," Sarah said. "The one from today." They knew. They all knew. One of the women, older, maybe 50, came forward and embraced me. Actually embraced me, pulled me against her and held me while I finally broke down and sobbed. "You're safe now, Habibti," she whispered. "You're with family. Your real family. Your brothers and sisters in Christ." I cried for 10 minutes. Maybe longer. Purging weeks of fear and tension and despair. And they just let me. Held me. Prayed over me in Arabic and in English and in languages I didn't recognize. When I finally pulled back, my face swollen and my eyes burning, the older woman smiled at me. "My name is Layla. I used to be a university professor. I taught Islamic studies. What happened? I asked. I read the Bible. Really read it. And I realized everything I'd been teaching was built on sand. So I left. Lost my job, my family, my reputation. But I found Jesus. And that was worth everything. She gestured to the others. We all have similar stories. We've all paid the price. And we've all found it worth paying. The man stepped forward. I'm Omar. I can get you out of the country. I have contacts at the border with Jordan. We'll drive through the night, cross in the morning when the shift changes. From there, you'll go to Amman, then to Cyprus, then to wherever the Lord leads you. How do you do this? I asked. It's so dangerous. If you're caught, then we're caught. His face was calm. Peaceful. Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. We've all lost our lives already. What we have now, this, is the life we found. The real life. And helping others find it too. That's our purpose. Sarah brought me clothes, a simple black abaya, a niqab, flat shoes. Put these on. We're going to take pictures for a fake ID. You need to look like every other woman in Saudi Arabia. Invisible. I changed in the bathroom. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. No makeup. No jewelry. No elaborate styling. Just a pair of eyes staring back at me from behind black fabric. But those eyes were different. They weren't dead anymore. They weren't hopeless. They were alive. While Omar worked on preparing documents and planning the route, Layla sat with me and asked me to tell her everything. Every detail of what had happened in the courtyard. I told her. About Jesus appearing. About his voice. About the darkness and the lightning and the way the ground had trembled. About how he had healed my wounds with a touch. About how he had declared me his own in front of everyone. She was crying by the time I finished. Do you know what you've been given? She whispered. Do you know how rare this is? Most of us come to faith through reading, through study, through slow awakening. But you've seen him. Actually seen him. Like Paul on the Damascus Road. Like John on Patmos. Why me? The question had been haunting me since the moment he'd appeared. I'm nobody. I'm just a girl who was trying to escape a forced marriage. Why would Jesus reveal himself like that for me? Layla smiled. Because he loves you. Because you're not just anything. You're his daughter. His chosen. His beloved. And he wanted the world to see that he fights for his children. That he keeps his promises. That he is real and he is alive and he is still performing miracles. They're going to say I made it up. They're going to say it was mass hallucination or special effects or... Let them say what they want. You know what you saw. You know what happened. And there were hundreds of witnesses. Some of them will lie. Some will deny. But some will remember. Some will start asking questions. Some will start seeking the truth. And that's how revival begins, one testimony at a time. A phone rang. Omar answered it, spoke rapidly in hushed Arabic, then hung up. His face was grim. We need to go. Now. The religious police are searching safe houses across the city. Someone must have talked. We have maybe 30 minutes before they get here. Panic surged through me. They know about this place? They know about several. We don't know if this one is compromised, but we can't risk it. We moved fast. I had nothing to pack. I had nothing. Sarah grabbed a bag with documents and cash. Layla took a small box that I later learned contained hidden Bibles. Omar had weapons, actual weapons. A pistol. A knife. Wait, I said. Jesus said no one would harm me. He said I was under his protection. Omar looked at me with kind but serious eyes. Yes. And his protection might mean we get through this without trouble. Or it might mean we fight. Or it might mean we die as martyrs and wake up in his presence. We don't know his plan. We just know we trust him. And we prepare wisely while we trust. We left through a back exit, down a stairwell that smelled of concrete and fear. Omar's car was parked in a different section of the garage. A van, old, unmarked, with tinted windows. We climbed in. Sarah drove. Omar sat in the passenger seat, constantly checking his phone. Layla sat in the back with me, holding my hand, praying quietly. We pulled out of the garage and merged into traffic. And that's when I saw them. 3 police cars. Lights off, but moving fast. Heading toward the building we just left. Go, Omar said quietly. Don't speed. Don't attract attention. Just go. Sarah drove like she'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe she had. Smooth. Calm. Taking turns casually, like we were just another family out for the evening. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break through my chest. We made it 4 blocks before the sirens started behind us. They saw us, Sarah said. Hold on. She accelerated. Not crazy, just enough to create distance. We wove through traffic. Other cars honked. People stared. They're gaining, Omar reported. I looked back. 2 police cars now. Getting closer. Jesus, I whispered. Jesus, please. You said. The police car on the right suddenly swerved. Its tire had blown. It spun out, crashed into a parked car. The second police car had to brake hard to avoid hitting it. We gained precious seconds. Take the next right, Omar instructed. There's a market district. Narrow streets. We can lose them. Sarah whipped the van around the corner. We plunged into a maze of tight streets, market stalls, pedestrians. She honked, people scattered. We scraped past carts and parked motorcycles. Behind us, the remaining police car was struggling to follow. Too big for these streets. We burst out the other side of the market and onto a highway. Sarah floored it. We're heading for the desert route, Omar said. It's risky, but it's the only option now. The main highways will have checkpoints. How long to the border? I asked. 4 hours. Maybe 5. If we make it. If. We drove into the setting sun. The city fell away behind us. Ahead was nothing but desert, endless, ancient, indifferent desert. The same desert where prophets had wandered. Where Jesus himself had been tempted. Where people had met God or died trying. I didn't know which would happen to us. But I knew one thing, I was free. Whatever happened next, whether I made it across the border or died in this desert, I was free. Free from the cage. Free from the lies. Free from the system that had tried to crush me. I was a daughter of the King of Kings. And nothing could take that away from me. We made it across the border just as the sun rose over the Jordanian desert. I can't tell you all the details, not because I don't remember, but because there are still people using those routes, still people risking their lives to help others escape. If I revealed too much, I would be putting them in danger. And I won't do that. They're heroes. Modern-day Underground Railroad conductors. Angels in human flesh. What I can tell you is this: we drove through the night on roads that weren't really roads. We hid twice when we saw military vehicles. We prayed constantly. And when we finally crossed into Jordan, when Omar pointed at a marker and said, "That's it, you're out of Saudi Arabia," I broke down and wept. I was free. Actually, legally, physically free. But I had lost everything. My family. My name. My country. My language, in a way, because even though people in Jordan spoke Arabic, it wasn't home. My wealth. I went from a palace to literally nothing. My identity. I couldn't use my real name anymore. I was Amira al-Rashid. But Amira al-Rashid was dead. Wanted. A fugitive. I had to become someone else. The organization that helped me, I'll call them the Exodus Network, they placed me with a Christian family in Amman. A Jordanian couple, both believers, who had helped dozens of refugees and converts over the years. Their names were George and Miriam. And they treated me like I was their own daughter. They gave me a room. They gave me clothes. They fed me. They taught me how to live as a Christian, how to pray without ritual washing, how to read the Bible deeply, how to worship without fear. And they held me while I grieved. Because even though I had been saved, even though I had chosen freedom, the loss was real. The pain was crushing. I would never see my mother again. Never hear her voice. Never get a chance to tell her I forgave her, that I understood, that I wished she could have been free too. I would never see my siblings again, younger brothers and sisters I hadn't even gotten to say goodbye to. I had cousins, friends, people I'd grown up with, all gone. Forever. And I knew that back in Riyadh, my name was poison. My father had probably disowned me publicly. My family would say I was dead. Or crazy. Or possessed. They would create a story that preserved their honor and destroyed my memory. Some nights, in that little room in Amman, I would wake up sobbing. Missing my mother. Missing my language. Missing even the parts of my old life that had been a cage, because at least it was a familiar cage. And every time, Miriam would hear me. She would come into my room and sit on my bed and hold me while I cried. "It's okay to grieve," she would whisper. Jesus never said following him would be painless. He said to count the cost. And you've paid a heavy cost, Habibdi. So grieve. Mourn what you've lost. But remember what you've gained. What I'd gained. Jesus. Not the Jesus I'd been taught about in Islam, a prophet, a teacher, just a man. But the real Jesus. The Son of God. The one who had appeared to me, spoken to me, saved me, and was walking with me every single day. I would open my Bible, my own Bible, which I could read openly without fear, and I would devour it. Hours every day. Learning. Growing. Falling more and more in love with this God who had pursued me, who had rescued me, who had given everything for me. I read about the early Christians who were persecuted, who lost everything, who died for their faith. And I realized, I was part of that story. I was part of a legacy that stretched back 2,000 years. I was part of the family of martyrs and witnesses and believers who had said Jesus is worth it and meant it. And slowly, so slowly, the grief began to transform into something else. Purpose. 6 months after I escaped Saudi Arabia, I was sitting in George and Miriam's living room when George showed me a video on his phone. "This has been circulating," he said carefully. "I debated whether to show you. But I think you need to see it." I took the phone. The video was grainy, clearly shot on someone's cell phone from a distance. But I recognized the location immediately. My family's courtyard. My wedding day. And there, in shaky footage, was the moment Jesus appeared. The darkness. The lightning. The figure in white. You couldn't see his face clearly, the light was too bright. But you could see the reaction of the crowd. People falling. Screaming. Running. And you could hear his voice. Distorted by the phone's microphone, but still audible. "Who dares harm my beloved?" The video cut off abruptly. But it was there. Proof. Evidence that something impossible had happened. How many people have seen this? I asked, my voice shaking. Millions. It's been shared across the Middle East. The Saudi government tried to suppress it, claimed it was fake, threatened anyone who shared it. But it keeps spreading. People are asking questions. Lots of questions. I stared at the screen. At the proof of the miracle that had saved my life. "George," I said slowly, "I need to tell my story. All of it. I need to let people know what Jesus did for me. What he can do for anyone who calls on his name." He smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. That's how I ended up here. Talking to you. Through this video. The Exodus Network connected me with people who helped me get to a safe country. I can't tell you which one, not yet, not while there are still people looking for me. But I'm in a place where I can speak freely. Where I can worship freely. Where I can be who God made me to be. I've been baptized. Fully immersed in water, declaring publicly that I have died to my old life and been raised to new life in Christ. It was the most beautiful moment of my life, even more beautiful than the moment Jesus appeared, because that baptism was me choosing him, publicly and irrevocably. I've joined a church. A body of believers who pray for me, encourage me, challenge me, and love me like family. Better than family. Because this family is bound together by something stronger than blood, by the blood of Jesus Christ. And I've dedicated my life to telling this story. My story. The story of how Jesus Christ pursued a Muslim princess trapped in a golden cage. How he revealed himself to her. How he kept his promise and set her free. I know some of you watching this don't believe me. You think I'm lying. You think the video was faked. You think I was just a rebellious girl who wanted to escape an arranged marriage and I've created this elaborate religious story to justify it. That's okay. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to tell you what happened to me. What I saw. What I know. Jesus Christ is real. He's not a prophet. He's not just a good teacher. He's the Son of the living God. He died on a cross for your sins and mine. He rose from the dead. He's alive right now. And he wants a relationship with you. But I know there are others watching this. Others who know exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe you're a Muslim woman trapped in an abusive marriage, and you've been told it's Allah's will, that you have to endure, that this is your test. Maybe you're a man who's been taught that masculinity means control and dominance, and you're exhausted from trying to live up to an image that's crushing your soul. Maybe you're a young person who's been asking questions about Islam, questions you're not allowed to ask, and you're terrified of what will happen if anyone finds out you're doubting. Maybe you've been praying to Allah for years and hearing nothing but silence, and you're starting to wonder if there's someone else. I need you to hear me. Jesus sees you. He knows your name. He knows your pain. He knows your questions. He knows your fear. And he's reaching out his hand to you right now. Those same scarred hands that reached out to me. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it's easy. Following Jesus cost me everything. My family. My country. My safety. My old identity. There are nights I still cry myself to sleep. There are days I miss my mother so badly I can barely breathe. But I have Jesus. And he is worth it. He is worth everything. The joy I have now, it's not dependent on circumstances. It's not based on comfort or security or having everything figured out. It's based on knowing that I'm loved. Unconditionally. Eternally. Perfectly loved by the Creator of the universe. The peace I have now, it's not the absence of struggle. It's the presence of God in the middle of the struggle. It's knowing that no matter what happens, I'm held in his hands and nothing can separate me from his love.